So I had a friend tell me they want to start running, but they don't know what running shoes to get or whether or not it's worth getting a pair of running shoes and what shoes to get. I'm sort of looping here, but you get the gist of it. Now, before I get into what my opinion is, I would highly recommend speaking to a podiatrist, a physiotherapist, or someone who has a medical background, because they will understand your feet a lot better, your gait being how you walk, and the structure of your arches, your foot, so the bottom of your foot. And that does matter, but from my understanding, for most people, you don't really need to worry too much about that. Some podiatrists may recommend orthotics, etc. But let's talk about my opinion and what I believe most people can do. This is just my opinion. I'm not a medical professional. I'm a personal trainer with a sports science degree. And this is what I use. So my medical background is that I actually have plantar fasciitis. I've had it for 4 years now. So for those of y'all who don't know what plantar fasciitis is, there's under your foot, there's, on your foot, there's, gosh, I can't even explain this well. See, this is why you need to speak to a physiotherapist. But there's a fascia and there's like a long band that's under your foot. And when that gets inflamed, you start to get pain in the heel. And this can be caused by numerous things. Most notable, for a lot of people, it's overuse and tightness of the plantar fascia. Oftentimes, it may be paired with Achilles tendonitis as well, and you may see issues in both. For some people, the reason why this could happen is because you overpronate, which means your foot kind of turns inwards and your arch collapses. So that's why flat-footed people are more likely to have plantar fasciitis. And I don't have flat feet, but I still struggle with it. My left foot doesn't have this issue, it's my right. And it's likely due to the fact that my right foot is just not as strong as my left. I grew up playing basketball and I used to jump off my left foot a lot, so my left foot's much stronger, etc. So I've been battling plantar fasciitis for quite a couple of years now, and it was at its worst when I was doing martial arts, and that's likely because I was doing it barefooted, whereas now when I run, it's not as bad. But yeah, usually it does occur from repetitive motion. So that was a quick background and why running shoes can be quite important. For most people who don't struggle with injuries, they can probably get away with just any running shoe that's from a reputable brand, and it'll probably do quite well. What's most important, that it should fit well. So it shouldn't be too tight, but it also shouldn't be too loose either, because you are more susceptible to injuries that way. So you want it to be a relatively snug fit. And if you have wider feet, go for the 2Es, 4Es, so wider toe box shoes and slightly wider shoes. Like 2Es and 4Es are generally made to be wider and fit better for wide feet. Now, is it important to get a pair of running shoes that fit well? And for most people, I think the reason why they ask is because they say, well, how much of it is marketing, right? Like, do I need to get a fancy pair? Do I need to get an expensive pair of shoes? In my opinion, yes, I would say so. Now, for certain things like, let's say, tennis, sure, an expensive racket's good, but it's not going to make you a better player. Is it also going to make you less prone to injury? Probably not, because you're hitting the ball with a racket. It's not really on your feet, etc., etc. But your feet are actually so important. It's the first point of contact to the ground, like your first point of body contact to the ground. And everything gets affected by how your feet land on the floor and the mechanics behind it. So if your feet are prone to overpronating, that's going to cause it's going to cause mechanical issues across the body when you run. And it's the same for any sport, really. So that's why shoes are probably the most important thing you should consider investing in when you play a new sport. If you're playing football, you should definitely get a good pair of football boots, because you're not only running, but you're also kicking the ball. You're also turning more. So that's really important as well. You don't want to bust up your knees with terrible shoes. So back to running, the cushioning is going to matter a lot, because there's a lot of repetitive motion. Now, some people may say they feel better with thinner soles. Some people, not thinner. Well, yes, technically thinner, because there are stacks now, so there's different. So what a stack is with running shoes is how high the heel is. And for some people, they'll find it more comfortable to have a higher heel, especially higher stack, especially for people who are slightly heavier. They want that cushioning, and certain brands will tend to have more. But honestly, from my understanding now, I'm not a shoe expert, I'm not a sneakerhead, but you can pretty much get any sort of shoe with any brand. A lot of brands have really diversified and make different types of running shoes now. So I think from my understanding, one's called a maximalist shoe and the other's called a minimalist shoe. So as you can probably figure, a maximalist shoe will tend to have more cushioning, it'll be a little heavier, and that can be really good for your easy and long runs, especially if you're heavier. Now, if you're someone who's a bit lighter and whatnot, you can probably get away with using a lighter pair of shoe, because at the end of the day, when you use a heavier pair of shoe, it does slow you down, right? It's literally physics. So that's something you have to factor in as well when it comes to your running shoe. You also need to understand what a heel drop is. I can't explain this very well, but from my understanding, let's say if someone says, oh, this pair of shoe has a 6 millimeter drop, it means the difference between the heel height and the toe height. Okay, so how much of a drop there is there. And from my brief understanding of it, what it just means that the higher the drop, the more likely it's going to push you forward, and that's usually better for those who run midfoot, run on their midfoot or front foot, so forefoot, right? They midfoot strike or forefoot strike, which means they land on their midfoot or toes. Whereas people who heel strike will probably benefit a little more from something that's not got as much of a drop. I'm not a shoe expert, but that's my understanding of it. So back to so what works well for me is a shoe that's slightly harder, got a bit of cushioning, quite a decent amount of cushioning, but also has a bit of arch support. So the Brooks Adrenaline GTS 25, I think, was one of the best choices I could make for someone who has plantar fasciitis, and it really did make a big difference. I used to run with the Puma Nitro Mag Maxes, the first model, which are actually very highly rated, and I really liked those shoes. The cushioning was incredible. It felt really soft, and I loved it. But unfortunately, I think what happened was there wasn't enough arch support as well, which meant my feet were collapsing inside, and it was so soft that my feet didn't have to do any work. And so my foot didn't get stronger, and if anything, it probably got even weaker as I ran more because I relied on the shoe. And I noticed that my plantar fasciitis was not getting any better. Now, there could have been many other reasons behind it too, like I have dropped my intensity of runs, but from my experience, after every run with my Brooks, my pair of Brooks, I feel better. And that cost me about 1,100 Hong Kong dollars. So that's about, I think, 150 US dollars. Whereas my Mag Maxes costed me about 70 US dollars. Now, that's by no means me saying a cheaper pair is going to be worse, but what I'm trying to say is it's definitely worth investing in a nicer pair of shoes because it can prevent, namely, injuries in the long run. Now, that's if you're someone who's just running casually, who wants to just stay healthy. I'll probably just get one pair that works really well for you, so then you stop getting injured. I would definitely do more research on shoes as well because I'm not an expert on this, but what I'm trying to tell y'all is that it is important. Now, if you're someone who wants to not only run for health, but also run to be faster, that's a bit of a different story. Then the running shoes are going to be even more important because you're going to be accruing a lot of mileage. And as research has shown, the more mileage you do, the better of a runner you'll be. And that's why your shoes are going to be even more important because you're going to add more mileage every week. Well, at least that should be your plan anyway. And if you're running in terrible shoes or shoes that don't work for you, you're very likely to accrue some sort of injury. And I think statistics show that for every year, 50% of total runners end up getting injured in that given year. So your risk is quite high. And this is not just from poor shoes, but obviously poor programming, poor sleep, poor nutrition, stress. These things will definitely add to that risk, but shoes is definitely one of them. So now, if you've already gotten your easy and long run pair, you're going to need another pair of shoes for your speed work. And if your goal is to run faster and run better and do running events, do high rocks and do it for time, you're going to need a pair of shoes that are a little faster. And this is where your carbon plated shoes will come in. So for those of y'all who don't know what a carbon plated shoe is they insert a piece of, I don't even know what you call it, but it's a carbon plate. It literally is a carbon plate, and that gives it a little more bounce moving forward. So it almost propels you forward a little bit for every stride. So from my memory, it decreases or increases your running economy by 2%. So you spend 2% less energy per stride, and that can make a massive difference in your time. Okay, so you will want to invest in a pair of carbon plated shoes for speed work as well as for your races. Now, some people might say you shouldn't actually train with carbon plated shoes too much because that means your feet aren't getting stronger, your legs aren't getting stronger, the shoes are doing the work. Honestly, I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's best to train in them. You are going to run races in them anyway, so you may as well. But some people are more traditional and say, no, just run in a pair of normal shoes, and then on race day, you can wear them and you'll be much faster. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's better to just train and do your speed work in the carbon plates. And as long as you're doing your weight training, you're doing your easy runs in normal shoes, you're still going to get faster. So, carbon plated shoes, there's so many different options. And to be honest, my opinion is go with a pair that fits your feet well. So I got really lucky because when I first started running, I think I bought a carbon plated shoe within like 3 or 4 months of running. I've been running for 7 months now. So about 3 months ago, I bought a pair of carbon plated shoes, and I didn't think too much about whether or not it fits well for me, whether or not it's the right shoe, the bottoms, but somehow I'm very lucky that it does fit me well. It fits like a glove, and it's still working for me now. But I'll probably do more research moving forward if I were to buy another pair, because it easily could have gone wrong. I've heard some people really rave about certain shoes and other people completely vilifying the same pair. So it has to fit your feet. It has to work well for you as well. You've got to factor in your mechanics as well as your height and weight too, because some people who are lighter runners might do a little better with a lighter pair and more minimalist pair, and vice versa as well. Someone who's heavier will probably not do as well in those. So you've got to factor those things in. Now, I'm not a running expert. I'm not a running shoe expert. I'm not a podiatrist. This is just my opinion based on running for literally 7 months. But I'd like to think I'm getting somewhere because my experience so far has been amazing. I've dropped my 5K PB from a 25-minute 5K to a 21:10, and I'm looking to close in on a sub 20 this winter. I did my 21:10 on a very hot day. It was 40 degrees. So I'm getting close to it. And I think in winter, I should be able to hit a sub 20, maybe even faster. So right now, the game plan is to just increase my mileage. I'm currently on 38 a week. Next week's a deload, and I'll be hitting 40 next week. And by the end of this block, I should be hitting 45. And then I plan to maintain anywhere between, I plan to maintain 45 at the very least, but I'm hoping to bump it up to 50 to 60 kilometers a week. And that'll set me up really good to hopefully hit even below a sub 19. I mean, sub 20 is something that I want to achieve, and I seriously believe anyone who trains hard and consistently can get to a sub 20. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's very doable. And my eventual goal is to hit a sub 18, and my lifetime goal, which I don't know if it'll ever happen, is a sub 17. So those are the goals I've kind of set myself. And I think it'd be really awesome. My VO2 max is currently 62. So I think I do have the genetics to be able to do that, but let's see. I mean, hopefully I don't get injuries. I end up, because part of it is genetic, part of it is how lucky you are. But yeah, if you're training consistently, I just don't see why it's not possible. And maybe I'm a bit delusional, but that's how I believe. I just think try your best. If I set a goal of sub 17, maybe I might not ever get there, but I might even end up hitting a 17:30, and I'm still very happy with that. But yeah, I totally digress. Getting a good pair of shoes is really important because you're never gonna hit those goals without a good pair of shoes that protect your feet. And it's really important to protect your feet because The moment you get injured, that's gonna bring you 5 steps back towards your goal, and then you're gonna have to rebuild again, and that takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's the video. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.